Hey everyone, Dalton Hopkins with Frontstretch.com here. Joining me today is Preston Pardus, part-time driver for DGM Racing. Preston, thank you for being with me today. Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. So part of the reason why we wanted to talk to you or why we want to get into contact with you is because you've been on the track with NASCAR. You've been kind of seen as like the road course guy for DGM,
Mhm.
but just who the heck are you? Like,
Uh,
like who this is your time. Like, who do you want people to know that you are?
I mean, kind of. I guess it's kind of broad, like you said, but
Yeah.
um, basically, road course racer. I've done, I think, 14, 15 starts now in the Xfinity Series for DGM part time. But really, I started out doing club racing, SCCA, Spec Miata. I've been doing that the past 7 or 8 years, so it's been good. I've won a few national championships doing that, so I got pretty good at it. And luckily, we had a bunch of sponsors backing us, and they wanted to move up the ranks and do Xfinity. As some of you know, my dad used to race NASCAR. Dan, he did Busch, Winston Cup, and then he did a bunch of ARCA races. Then he did some broadcasting on the side before he got out of it and moved back down here to Florida, where we're at. So, like I said, got into racing because of him and did Miatas, and we went Xfinity racing, and been pretty good at it lately.
And everyone's been pretty impressed. I mean, you're growing that following behind you.
Mhm.
You've got, the P Money title, which I love.
Yeah.
But tell me about your dad, Dan Pardus. As some of you watching may not know or may know, former ARCA driver, former Xfinity driver. Tell me about what your
Mhm.
relationship was like growing up with your dad.
Yeah, it's a little different. I feel like it's a lot different than most like father son racing dads and stuff. When he was racing and actually got done racing, I was only 4 or 5, so I never really got to really remember a bunch of the NASCAR stuff, more or less. So kind of not saying I was shielded from it, but I didn't really live the life. Like Chase Elliott, for example. I mean, he grew up when his dad was racing, still in his prime and stuff, and when he started racing as a kid, his dad was still doing NASCAR. So that was obviously a little bit different for us, but we got into it. He, anyway, my dad was doing broadcasting still when he got done doing NASCAR for a while, and then from there, I was 7 or 8, and we started out doing quarter midgets together, just kind of as a hobby, more or less. We really never took it seriously. We only stayed at our local track in New Smyrna, so we really didn't travel a lot, like a bunch of kids doing quarter midget racing, and then really just like I said, we did it as a hobby. Probably 4 or 5 years. We did a little dirt biking and stuff like that, but nothing real serious. Uh, got too old for quarter midgets around 14. Ended up getting a Miata and started taking it a lot more serious than we did before with the go karts and stuff. And probably 2 or 3 years went by, and I actually got pretty good at it. And then it's been fun the whole time I've been racing. My dad's been right there. Expect me honestly, he was my crew chief on the Xfinity stuff. He's basically my car chief slash crew chief at the time. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you mentioned the Spec Miatas. Your dad grew up, or excuse me, your dad was the track champion in New Smyrna Speedway, which you mentioned growing up around there. And every time it shows on the broadcast where you're from, it says New Smyrna
Yeah.
Speedway, which for those of you who don't know, it's like maybe about 20 minutes from Daytona International Speedway. So close to the heart of NASCAR, or if you want to call it that. But again, New Smyrna Speedway is a short track for late models, and it's an oval. What got you into Spec Miata racing? How did that come to be on the road courses?
Yeah, that's the really funny part about probably this whole thing is my dad never raced a road course in his life. He only did Skip Barber when he was a kid, not really kid, but teenage years when he was doing the oval mini stock stuff, and so it's really awkward, more or less, that we got involved with it. But really, when we were getting on quarter midgets, we were trying to find something affordable, more or less. As just everyone knows, motorsports is super expensive. So we were kind of searching around. Obviously, New Smyrna's in our backyard. It's only 10 minutes from us, but um, it was kind of hard to justify spending a lot of money, um, up to 6 digits, just doing late models. And you stay in New Smyrna, you race with the weekly guys all the time, which isn't a bad thing. It's just we felt like there could have been better options out there, and we actually got really lucky and we found Spec Miata, where it's a huge following. It's almost it's a different culture, more or less. It's kind of like the old Formula Ford days back in the '90s, when at its peak when there was a ton of drivers doing it. But yeah, we had a family friend recommend it and went and watched one of their weekends, and it's probably the coolest class out there. I mean, you got a bunch of guys. I think we had almost 100 at the national championships. So you got a ton of drivers. You got a lot of former pro drivers. You got a lot up and coming drivers. What's really cool now in the past few years, I feel like it's really followed. Is a bunch of karting kids are coming up. We got a bunch of national champions in karting. We got Connor Zilic. Some people might know of him. He's a world champion in karting. He got into Spec Miatas a few years ago. So it kind of really speaks volume, I think, for the class. People like that are attracted to it. And it really makes people a better driver, more or less, when you're racing against those guys every week at the big events. And really, you can't find that, I feel like, at a regional level. When you go to short tracks on the weekly events, I mean, obviously, you got the Snowball Derby, probably one of the hardest events out there in the country. But best bang for your buck, I would say, probably with Spec Miata. And like I said, I'm really happy we found it.
I talked to your dad a little while ago, and he said something along the lines of Spec Miata racing is going, in the long run, going to make you a better racer in
Mhm.
NASCAR. Tell me about what's, aside from the lifestyle, what's the actual mechanical difference, the driving difference between Spec Miatas and then getting into those heavy stock cars in
Yeah,
NASCAR?
it's a huge difference, more or less than anything. It's a production car. It's a Mazda Miata that you can go find on the street. Um, so that's the big downfall about it. But the nice thing about the Miata is it's so basic. Um, it's really a street car with a race roll cage in it, and you're only allowed to change a few things on it. Obviously, the name Spec Miata. It's a spec class, kind of like NASCAR, more or less. So everyone's got the same car, and that really allows you to develop as a driver. It's not about how much money you have. Obviously, if you got money, you're going to get the best motors and all that in Spec Miata. Tire budget's good, but you're not worried about having a car that's way down. You can go to a short track and you can get a really cheap late model, or you can get a car that costs almost as much as an Xfinity car. So that's kind of the difference you have there. But in Miata racing, it's nice. Like I said, it's all about driver. Few modifications. What's nice about them too is they have no ABS, no traction control. They're an H pattern shifter, so it's really dumbed down. Not like you see a lot of GT cars have out there now. A lot of sports cars obviously have TC, ABS, and it doesn't really allow you to really learn. I feel like the dynamics of a car. And being a Miata, it's only 120 horsepower, so you got to really learn about momentum and stuff like that. So it might not be a stock car, making almost 700 horsepower and 3,400 pounds, but it allows you, I feel like, to learn as a driver more than you would in a sports car, where it kind of assists you, and it's almost like a video game, more or less. I kind of look at it, when as you're a kid, you're playing Forza or whatever, a NASCAR game. It's got all the assist on, and that's kind of what I feel like sports cars can be, maybe. And the Miatas are so pure. It's like you got all the assist off, and it helps when you get a stock car because they don't have any of the assist. So it's just, I feel like it's a pretty good parallel. The only difference is you don't, go to the ovals in those cars, but it's something you got to learn over time.
And it's even more impressive because I'm sorry, I've lost count. Is it three-time national champion? Is
Yeah,
that what it is? Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So in those equal playing field cars, you
Mhm.
have a driver who is a three-time runoff champion, and now you're entering the world of NASCAR. But you're not the only one. Of course, there's drivers like Josh Bilicki, and then Brad Perez just
Mhm.
entered the truck, made his first truck start recently. What's your relationship with those guys? Have you talked to some of the other drivers that have come out of Spec Miata, who have graduated out of Spec Miatas and come into NASCAR?
Yeah, I feel like actually Balicki, I mean, he's helped me out a ton. It's really funny. He kind of probably about 5 or 6 years ago is when we were racing Miatas together, and he kind of got out of it. That's before I won any of the big races. So it was cool when we came over to the NASCAR side. I mean, I didn't know a lot of people. Being down here in Florida, we had our own family team. We were kind of isolated. I feel like a little bit from everybody. So I really, relied on him for advice, and he helped out quite a bit. Just saying that more or less confidence than anything that I could do it. And then even like Brad. it's cool having him, do the ARCA debut last year, and then he did the trucks last weekend at Coda, which was super cool to see. Just seeing some buddies like that just succeed, it's awesome.
A lot of those drivers, and we see at the Rolex 24 during that weekend, I think it's on the Thursday or the Friday before, we'll see those Spec Miata cars go out, and it's such a fun, it's such a blast to watch because they're all just in the draft. So it's like 8 cars in a pack at the end. But a lot of those drivers graduate and they go move on to IMSA, or they move on to one of the lower classes in IMSA, like Michelin Pilot or one of the Michelin Pilot. But have you ever considered going into IMSA? Is that something that's still in the playing field? Could we see you in the Rolex 24 one day?
I would love to, honestly. I would never turn that down. As you know, growing up in the area, that's one of the cool events at Daytona each year. So it'd be a highlight. And then obviously in the motorsports world, it's a crown jewel. So I would never turn that one down. But sports car wise, I mean, when I was a kid growing up, 7 or 8, my dream was NASCAR. It never was road racing, which I feel like is so weird to say now because that's all I do is road racing. But no, I mean, if there was an opportunity, I would definitely be very interested in it. But I don't know. I really like what we're doing right now. I'd love to do more NASCAR stuff. And for everyone else, what I do more, and I'd love to. But obviously, at the end of the day, it comes down to budget, sponsors. But I don't know. I would never turn down any series.
I mean, luckily for you, you kind of showed up at the right time. NASCAR's putting in, what is it? I think, is it like 6 road courses for the Xfinity Series this year? I lost it. And a couple new ones. Yeah,
it's been perfect. I mean, the only problem I would say is with COVID, we lost practice and qualifying, and I feel like that actually really kind of did hurt me a little bit. And a few of the starts, but now we're kind of back going. I'm used to the cars quite a bit. Obviously, still a lot to learn, but it's kind of funny. With the COVID deal, my first 2 races were pre-COVID in 2019, and it definitely was a lot different than Miata racing and all that. You have such a big atmosphere with NASCAR events. You got fans, people everywhere, and then with COVID, obviously everything stopped. It was really only the drivers and the crews at the racetrack, no media members or anything, and that kind of reminded me quite a little bit of Spec Miata. It doesn't have a huge following, unfortunately. I don't really wish that on any series, but just club racing and stuff, you maybe have a few fans in the thousands, not tens of thousands like NASCAR. So it kind of let the nerves sit down quite a bit. And then obviously the past few years, everything's been turned back up, which is great. Having fans and everyone at the track, media members. And it's really cool to actually enjoy that experience. It was kind of a bummer. We went to Daytona the past 2 years, road course, home track, 10 minutes away, sleeping in my own bed, and my own friends and family couldn't even show up for that deal. But no, it's been fun.
Now you got some mention on the DJD, the Dale Jr. download from Boris Said when he was on there. He had nothing but nice things to say about you. He talked to Dale Jr. about how much of a rising talent you were, and now you're teaching his son. Tell me about what that's like, and
it's
crazy. Are you gonna grow up the Said head? That's the real question.
I would if I could. It wouldn't grow out right. But no, that's probably one of the craziest things that's ever I've dealt with in racing. As a kid, that was the guy on road racing. I mean, you watch him, and that he was the best, and he still is the best. I mean, I don't think there's anyone comparable to him out there. And no, it's funny. We went to Coda last year. I knew his kid was racing Miatas. Never met him or anything, but just you see his name pop up in results and stuff. And I knew Boris was racing that weekend, and we didn't even get on track yet for practice. And I had to go medical center, do the normal weigh-in or whatever for each NASCAR year. They make you get on the scales just to see what you weigh. And I got back, and the crew's like, "Hey, Boris said he came by and he was looking for you. He was telling us you're really good." And like, what are you guys talking about? And then he actually came back by again before practice, and it was funny because all the guys are like, "Man, did you do something to him?" Like, we didn't even get on track. I couldn't have done anything bad. And no, it was cool. He came up and just said how awesome it was watching me in the Miatas. He said he watched some of the Miata broadcasts, and he was watching my in cars, and just said I did a great job, which coming from him, that was crazy. I mean, just really crazy. And then he said, his son's getting involved, and of course, I feel like with Miatas, there's so many people out there that helped me develop as a driver. Um, the first few years I started, it seemed right just to send him some notes for a few tracks that we were going to, and one thing turns to another, and I'm helping him quite a bit. He's turned into a really good driver. Boris Jr. has. He's only done probably I think 6 or 7 car starts, and he's top 10 at nationals now. So it's really cool to see him develop really quick. So it's really cool. Just getting to know him and his dad on a friend level. This is just really cool.
With all this behind you, and now all this experience behind you, now these other drivers recognizing you, these road course legends recognizing you, let's talk about how DGM came to be. You made a couple
Yeah,
starts, I think it was 2019 if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been 2018.
yeah, 2020.
Yeah,
Yep,
and
yeah,
when you first started, and then now you're with DGM, tell me about how that relationship came to be.
yeah. So 2019, we did our family team first 2 starts of the year. My first 2 starts, I mean career starts, and then in 2020, COVID happened and all that, and excuse me, we trying to think here. Again, I'm confusing my years. No, so yeah,
No,
in
they all blend
2020
together.
yeah, with COVID and all that, we had that delay. Being down here in Florida, we got really it's just us, and then Mario's actually 2 hours from us. He's right near Sebring,
Mm.
in Lake Wales. So actually, when I did my first 2 starts, we talked to him quite a bit, just for advice and stuff like that. The next closest shop's up in North Carolina, so it kind of fell in line. Getting to talk with him quite a bit, and then one thing led to another, and we actually did the starts for him in 2020, driving the 36 car, which is cool. I mean, it's helped us out a lot. I feel like helped me as a driver just learn stuff. I got teammates now to reflect on. I had Josh Williams and then Alex LeBay at the time, and it's awesome because you can actually go to people, and it's not like when we were doing our own family stuff and I was my only guy out there. I didn't know anything about the cars, and I had no one to ask other than people like Josh Bilicki and stuff like that. But I feel like on a teammate level, it's a lot different. You can really compare notes and stuff and not feel too bad about not giving answers and stuff. So yeah, no, it's worked out, with Mario quite a bit. Got to know him on a really close level. Him and his family, it's a really cool thing. It's kind of like what we had going as a family team. It's literally him and his wife and his daughters running that team, which is really cool. And then they got 3 cars, which is crazy. So no, it's been really cool to get to know everybody and run some starts with them.
So you got one start under your belt at Coda, fastest in practice, and then 7th in qualifying, if I'm not mistaken. Tell me about that race, and tell me about your confidence level going after they finished 14th. What was the goal for that weekend?
Oh, honestly, going into that weekend, I feel like a good day is still a top 15. With the field right now, I mean, as everyone knows, it's better than ever. I mean, you got 40 plus entries showing up each week. So if you could be a top 15 guy, that's pretty awesome. And especially if you're part time, I feel like, you're on the seat every week like those guys are. So I really feel like you got to set your expectations to that. So really anything above a top 15 is a good day. I mean, we've had top 10s before, but everything's got to line up perfect. And you're going up against the best of the best. Really, those guys are going to be cup guys one day. So, I mean, you're going up against really stiff competition. But no, it was actually a really good weekend for us. If we could have stopped after Friday, that would have been all right with me. Being on top of the boards in practice. But I mean, practice really that was only 2 laps, and the session was kind of hit or miss. So it could have got that time could have been changed, but it was nice to really go out there and back it up in qualifying. I felt like we left quite a bit, not quite a bit, a little bit on the table in the second round, but still 7th was really cool. Like I said earlier, we really haven't had practice in qualifying, so to have that and go out there and have a good showing like that was awesome. In the race, I don't know what really happened. We kind of slowed down quite a bit from our best lap in Friday, and as everyone knows, you should kind of pick up the pace the more you get used to the track. And we backed up. So I don't know if something happened with the car mechanically or We just missed a setup with a track rubber in or something, and still not a bad day though. 14th. Came back with the car rolling straight. So little tire marks here and there, but it wasn't a bad weekend by any means. I'd take it over some.
Yeah, I mean, well, practice, just stop the count after that. I mean, just shut it down for the
Exactly.
whole weekend, give the trophy the fastest of practice. I mean, that's
That's gonna be on my hero card now. Fastest
if
in
only
practice. I go down.
on your hero card, fastest in Xfinity practice, Preston Pardus. So I talked to Mario Gosselin at Atlanta, and he mentioned that he really wants to get you in all the road courses in 2022. Wants to get you in the car in all the road courses in 2022. And the DGM team has now downgraded to 2 cars full time, and then the other car, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be part time. Is that still on the table? Are we still planning on running all of the road courses for 2022?
Yeah, I mean, at this time, I can't really say. We're trying. I think we're kind of doing event by event basis, more or less. That's the goal, at least. Run them all. We have in the past few years. So something could change. We don't know yet, but I would say we already have a few scheduled, not all of them, for sure, set in stone. It comes down to sponsors at the end of the day too. So we'll see. Hopefully we can maybe do some left turns too along the way. We'll see what happens. Obviously, as you said, the downsize kind of changes maybe a little bit of it, but we'll see what happens. You never know what the year has in play. Last year we only were scheduled to do, I think, 4 races, and we ended up doing 8. So we'll see. We'll play it event by event, but I'd love to do them all again.
So I'm assuming that you don't know if you'll be at Martinsville next weekend.
No, I don't know that. I don't know.
Do you just get like a text like on Monday morning saying, "Hey, are you free this Saturday?"
No, it's usually a few weeks in advance. So we know. I wouldn't say it's not happening, but I wouldn't say it would. So we'll see what happens as a few days go by. But it still comes down to sponsor budgets, like I said, at the end of the day, and what's going on. So I wouldn't count in certain events. Like I said, Martinsville last year worked out great. They had an opening in the car, and we wanted to really do an oval. The past few years, we finally did it. So we'll see what happens, and you never know. You could do mile and a half one day or something like that. Dude, you never know.
You kind of touched on it already, but a lot of people would love to see you on an oval, maybe even like a super speedway, especially Daytona or somewhere close to home. What is it going to take for you to get on that oval? Is it just like, is it funding, or is it something else?
Yeah, no, it's the end of the day, it's kind of budget. If we could put a package together that would work for everybody, I would definitely not turn down a full year or anything like that. So yeah, unfortunately, world revolves around money, and I don't know, but I'd love to do it.
Have you been approached by any other teams aside from DGM about possibly running any part-time runs?
Not too much. Not really, not much. I really like where we're at right now. The program we have, unless it's more than what we're doing now, which it's hard to do. I mean, we're doing, like I said, 8 races last year and having a blast doing it with the group of guys we did. I feel like is awesome. It's a family team, like I was referring to earlier. So you can go out and do it with those people you like doing it with. It's kind of hard to want to change it.
Well, Preston, I think that's all I got. I really appreciate you talking with me tonight, and I wish you the best of luck for the rest of the year.
No problem. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Follow Preston's future plans in 2022 on frontstretch.com.